All right, welcome to Snow Family Racing. We're going to be working on four-wheelers today. It's a beautiful day for early February. As you can see, my kids are outside. My wife's back there pruning up some trees. But we're going to be playing with four-wheelers today. I've got my little Yamaha. It's a 1989 Moto 4 200. It's a little guy, but it's actually a lot of fun to ride because it's kind of underpowered. Hopefully we're going to fix that a little bit today. I'm using some parts from RM Stator. We're going to put a new coil on it, and we're going to put a new ignition box. Now this new ignition box is kind of fun because it's supposed to have a better timing curve, which should help this little thing make a little bit more power. Now I don't expect to keep up with 500s or any of the bigger machines, but certainly we're going to do a little bit and try and make this little thing a little bit better. So I'll show you the parts in just a second, and we'll dig into this. We're looking for, remember, coil, ignition box. Those are the two things we're changing, and we're not going to change anything else on it. We're just going to do those. We're going to do a little bit of testing. We're going to get some before and after numbers, and I'll show you all those and see if we can pick up any difference in how this thing runs. So follow along. We're going to have some fun with this on this beautiful day. Okay, so I did 3 runs back to back to back, and we got a 5.95 second, 5.83 second, 5.76 second for an average of a 5.85. We're going to run the same test after we swap the ignition box and the coil. We're going to see the results that we get. Alrighty, since it's so nice out, we're working on the trunk lid of my good old Buick. Anyways, here's the parts we've got. We got the ignition box, we got the ignition coil. The ignition box, part number SF030000709, and the coil is SF060000786. This coil is kind of, one of those pieces that everything under the sun uses largely the same coil. So RM Stator's got one coil that covers a large number of models. So let's start the disassembly process on the four-wheeler over here, and let's see what we're up against. All right, let's try that again. Now we're going to take the seat off. I've got to take the back rack off. Now this is a rack that doesn't normally come on these. I put it there because I put a nice little backpack on. Without the rack on the back, this thing's a little hard to put, cooler, little tools, toe straps, that kind of stuff. And then we're going to take off the plastic. Now the coil sits largely underneath on this side. We got the spark plug there, and we're going to look for the coil, which is going to be under the gas tank once we get the plastic off. Now under the seat, there's going to be a couple of 10mm screws. We're going to take those off. We're going to take the rear plastic off, so that way we can get to everything underneath and find the ignition box correctly. And my little daughter is going to be here for moral support and to sprinkle water everywhere. All right, so let's get started. Oh, the treasures you find when going through things that you did forever ago. I've been looking for this spring-loaded center punch for months. Anyways, you saw my Leatherman wingman come out there. As you can see, we got the back pretty well stripped off. Didn't want to walk all the way back into the garage to grab the right Phillips head screwdriver, so I just grabbed the handy-dandy Leatherman. If you don't carry one, I would highly recommend that you get one. That's a great thing to have in your pocket, I tell you what. All right, so I'm going to do some looking, make sure the parts I got are going to be correct. I'll show you the locations once I get everything squared up and figured out, and catch up with you in just a minute. Okay, found the ignition coil. Had to go one step further. Had to undo the gas tank. Normally there'd be a bolt on this side, a bolt on the other side, and this little strap thing, keep in mind, it's an 89. It spent a lot of time on the trail. So the bolts for the gas tank were missing. So, one second. There we go. The coil is right there. Looks like a couple of 10mm bolts that orange wire, which the orange wire matches up here on the new coil. I'm going to swap the coil first, make sure it runs, and then we're going to move on from there. No sense doing too many things and, you know, having trouble along the way. Now just a quick note, while we got the coils side by side, you can see my dirty fingerprints all over everything. Coil wise, everything is going to mount up the same. The spark plug wire is a good bit longer, not the end of the world. That just means I will kind of loop it around there. It's like Google when it says do a barrel roll. Just kidding, I wasn't going to do that. So I'm going to loop it around and hook it back up to ye old spark plug. I changed this a couple months back before the last ride of the season, so it's not that old. I'm not too worried about it. So let's get everything put back together. Oh, one other note. This guy and this guy right here both came off of this side of the coil, kind of like a ground. So we're just going to make sure we get those put back in when we put it back together. Okay, I did a little bit of digging in some prior disassembly and I put it back together just so I can show you what we're doing. So here is the new ignition box. Yes, the shadows are on a little funny, but that's what we got. So the new ignition box is here. There's two plugs. Originally, I thought it was back here. We got this guy back here that's got some heat sinks, but that's actually the voltage regulator for this guy. The ignition box was hiding in plain sight. It's that guy right there. So it's just got a tang, that pulls off, and the voltage, or the ignition box, pulls off in my hands. Now it loops through the frame. Let's see here, you got one connector in the wiring harness right here. The other one loops around through that tang and all the way over to that plug. But what we've got is a good bit shorter, and frankly, it doesn't need to zip around that far back. We can easily go underneath, between the body, the frame and the shock to get to that plug over there by the carburetor. I'm going to look at it a little bit. As far as the length of the spark plug wire, I was able to run it between a couple of wires, so it's held up nicely and has a very nice, easy loop to work with. So I'm going to take this guy out of its rubbery case, going to undo the two connectors, plug it in, and make sure it starts. Now I did start it after I got the coil, didn't feel it was wildly important to film it, but it does run. Now when you're doing these electrical components, it's always good to make sure that everything still functions as you go, one step at a time. That way you know which step had trouble. I know some people like to do everything at once. I'm a one step at a guy, verify everything kind of guy. So I'm going to undo the connections, which take two hands, not one, otherwise I just do it, but I can't. So I'm going to undo the connections, plug the new one in, make sure it runs. I'll show you that it runs, and then we're going to figure out how to put this guy back into its factory location or another location that makes sense. So my son's over here watching with sheer enjoyment. Right, Riker?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to keep moving forward. Alright, you saw previously that my son offered to hold the camera while I plug the wires and show that it runs, but routed the wires nice and neat, swapped the ignition box, and it had a nice rubbery hold-on. And keep in mind, this guy is reasonably square, that guy's kind of rectangular, but it all fit in its hole like it was supposed to. So that's a nice thing. Now we're going to start the reassembly process. All right, everything's put back together. We're going to fire it up. Going to take it for a little run up the road and back, make sure that it's all warmed up. My son Riker was able to help me out with you know, the nuts and bolts grabbing and a couple other tidbits there. So it's back together. We're going to give it a go, then we're going to run the same test that we had before. I'll show you that, and I'll also have the results of the before and after and see if this hot rod box makes much of a difference or if it's all seat of the pants. We're going to find out. We're going to put some numbers to this and see if we can apply some science and you know, see how it does. Remember, the difference between science and screwing around is writing stuff down. I've got numbers written down. We're going to compare before and after. Let's go have some fun. All right, after the ignition coil and ignition box, we did 3 runs back to back to back, just like before. Got a 5.69, a 5.44, and another 5.44. You'd think I'm a bracket racer or something. Anyways, we got an average of a 5.52 after the new parts. So as you saw, we had some pretty modest improvements. I mean, that's probably 120 feet or so. We picked up about 0.3 of a second in the average. I'll show you all the math behind it in just a minute. We took 3 runs and we're going to average it to get an average run for what we were doing. And we picked up some solid gains. RM Stator, man, you guys rock. That box is a blast. As you saw, I was, you know, in the first passes, I was first and second to where I was ending. In the aftermath with the new parts, fresh coil, fresh hot ignition box, I was catching third and shaved some pretty modest time there. So I am very pleased. This was already a fun machine, made even more fun. You know, those wide open throttle 1-2 shifts, it picks the front end up. It makes it a blast to drive. So thanks for watching. You know, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. You know, especially if you're interested in the ATV stuff. I'll try and get some more of that in as time goes by. But that pretty much wraps up the things that I absolutely wanted to do with my four-wheelers. And we'll hopefully find some more adventures to go on with parts. And you know, by all means, RM Stator is phenomenal with the parts. Look him up. I'm very pleased with this ignition box and coil combo. Totally recommend it if you guys are looking to, you know, pick up a little bit of zip on your you know, older Yamahas, older four-wheelers. They still have parts that have you covered. This thing is a riot. I'm totally pleased. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more stuff. We'll be having more race car content. We'll be doing some more motorhome repairs as time goes by. You know, all those things that go into running a race operation. We're just going to keep working through all of it, and I'll probably throw in a few more other tidbits here and there. So thanks for watching.